This week's Parsha is Parshat Vayechi. And in Parshat Vayechi, Yaakov is 147 years old. And he is about to pass away. Well, Yosef is called to Yaakov's bedside. And Yaakov says, "Swear to me that you will bury me in Eretz Yisrael and not in Mitzrayim." And Yosef says, "I will do so." Yaakov said, "Swear to me." And Yosef swore. And Yaakov then bowed towards the head of the bed. And our rabbis tell us that Hashem rests near the head of a sick person's bed. So that's why Yaakov bowed. Simple meaning is that he bowed to his son, Yosef, who was the king. Now, Yaakov was getting older, and Ephraim was studying Torah with Yaakov, and he saw that Yaakov was getting very sick. So he went to Yosef, and he called Yosef to please come to visit his father. And Yosef took his two sons to Yaakov, and Yaakov did the famous blessing where he switched his hands, and he gave the Hamalach HaGoel blessing to his two grandsons. But Yosef was puzzled why Yaakov put his left hand on the older son's Menashe's hand. And Yaakov explained to his son that he knows that Menashe will also be great, but Ephraim will have a greater leader, Yehoshua, come from him, and Menashe will only have Gidon and a smaller tribe. Well, then it's time for all the brothers to get a blessing. And Yaakov calls all of his sons one by one to his bed. First he calls his oldest son, Reuven. Well, Reuven steps up to the plate, and he's in for a little bit of a shock. Yaakov tells him, "Pachaz kamayim, you're hasty as water." And that wasn't exactly a compliment. It was Yehuda being given musar, given rebuke for how he moved the bed of his father as a protest after Rachel had died, and Yaakov was not happy about that. Our rabbis tell us that Yaakov waited until he was about to pass away. Why did Yaakov wait till he passed away to give his children rebuke? Our rabbis tell us because he knew that when someone gives you rebuke, you can't look at them in the face. And Yaakov didn't want his sons to be staying away from him. So he gave them the rebuke right before he passed away, so they knew that he was serious and he meant it for their own good to do teshuvah. So that was Reuven's so-called blessing. Of course, it was a blessing, but it was also a rebuke. Then Yaakov called Shimon and Levi, and he gave them a nice, beautiful, not exactly another rebuke as well. They didn't get an outright blessing as it seemed. Of course, everything that Yaakov said was a blessing, but outwardly it seemed to be that Yaakov was saying, "Arur arpam, apam, cursed is their..." We had this in our words this week. What is af?
No, anger.
Anger. Cursed is their anger, because Shimon and Levi perpetuated a big slaughter in Shechem, and he says that they had stolen weapons because the descendants of Yaakov were supposed to use the Torah as their weapon, and they stole Esav's weapon and they took the sword and killed out Shechem. Well, after those beautiful blessings, Yehuda did not exactly want to step up. He started to back away, but Yaakov called him back, and Yaakov said, Gur Aryeh Yehuda. Yehuda is like a lion cub, and he's like a crouching lion. Who will dare disturb him? And when he fights his enemies, he's like a lion the enemies are running from him, and his hand is at their neck to catch them and subdue them. He also says, Yoducha achecha, your brothers will thank you. And Yaakov also gives various references to hints about the coming of Mashiach. Yaakov says that there will never cease to be a ruler from Yehuda. We know that from King David, all of his descendants from Yehuda are kings, and also a teacher of Torah from Yehuda. We know the famous Hillel was from Yehuda, from the family of David, and Hillel's descendants, including Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who wrote the Mishnah, were all from King David from Yehuda. So that was Yehuda's blessing. Well, then came the two brothers Yisachar and Zvulun. First, Zvulun, he blessed him that he will have prosperity in his ships, and his portion in Israel would allow him to do commerce with ships. And Yisachar was blessed to be a strong donkey, like a strong donkey. Well, because Yisachar were great scholars and they spent their time learning Torah, and as us dear students know, it takes a lot of effort to sit down all day and learn Torah. You just want to get up and go out to recess. But Yisachar had strong bones and he would sit there and learn for many hours, becoming a great scholar. And Yisachar and Zvulun made a partnership together where Zvulun would bring the money and Yisachar would bring the Torah, and they had a beautiful partnership together. And then we have, of course, Dan. Dan got a blessing. Sounds interesting. Dan is like a snake lying in ambush, and the snake lying in ambush, Yaakov was hinting at one of the famous descendants from the tribe of Dan would be Shimshon Hagibar, who was the Jewish people's first spy, who pretended he was friendly with the Plishtim, the Philistines, and what he did was, in the end, he betrayed them and destroyed them and attacked them and killed many Plishtim. In fact, his last thing he did in his life was to topple down the walls of his. So that was done. Well, the next one was Naphtali. And Naphtali was actually given a blessing to be as swift as a deer. Naphtali's warriors were swift as a deer in the battle of Devorah against Sisera. And also Naphtali was supposed to be very fast. In fact, by the end of the parsha, our rabbis tell us that when the Shvatim came to bury Yaakov, they found a surprise waiting for them. They found Esav. Esav preventing them to bury in the Maras HaMachpelah, saying, "This belongs to me." Well, Yosef had a deed, a document that said that Yaakov owned it, not Esav. So Naphtali ran to Mitzrayim as swift as a deer to get it. But according to the Midrash, meanwhile, Esav was preventing Yaakov from being buried, and Chushim, who was the son of Dan, who was a little bit deaf, or all the way deaf, didn't understand what was going on, and he got nervous that Esav was preventing the burial of Yaakov. So he pulled out a sword and removed Esav's head from its shoulders, and it was deposited in the Marat HaMachpelah until this very day. And then, after Naphtali, we have Gad. Now Gad was blessed as troops, like an army troops, because Gad was the one who led the Jewish people into battle to go against the Canaanites, and so therefore he was blessed to be a strong troop. And then was Usher, and Usher was blessed with great riches. Specifically, our rabbis tell us that Usher had a lot of beautiful olive trees full of oil, which they got, which was very valuable. And Usher was also supposed to have very beautiful daughters who were righteous and that got married to the Kohanim Gedolim. And finally, Yosef was blessed as Yaakov blessed him, very handsome son of his, and gave him a lot of blessings for success. And finally, Binyamin was blessed as a wolf. Binyamin as a wolf. Why did he bless him as a wolf? Well, our rabbis tell us that Binyamin was a very ferocious warriors, and they fought, as we see in the book of Shoftim, a story with Binyamin and their fighters. So Binyamin was given was given this blessing. All the Shvatim took the bed of Yaakov and they carried him in a coffin to Eretz Canaan. There was an interesting story that before Yaakov died, he wanted to tell the Shvatim, he wanted to tell them when Mashiach would come. And he says in the Parsha, Hey Asfu, gather, v'agid lachem, I'm going to tell you what will happen at the end of days. But Yaakov never says what happens at the end of days in the Parsha. Our rabbis tell us that the Ruach HaKodesh, Hashem's presence, started to leave Yaakov, and Yaakov was worried that maybe the Shvatim don't deserve to have this revealed to them. So Yaakov, it's not written in the Parsha, but our Midrashim tell us that behind the scenes, what was going on here, Yaakov asked his sons, do any of you not believe in Hashem? That you are unworthy? And so his sons right away responded, Shema Yisrael, listen Yisrael, which was the name of Yaakov. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem our God, Hashem Echad, Hashem is one. And Yaakov was so excited to hear this, he said, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto La'olam Va'ed. This is according to the Midrash, besides for the fact that this Shema is written in the Torah, of course. The Midrash tells us that Yaakov was the one who first said it. His sons, the Shvatim, were the ones who first said it, and Yaakov responded, Baruch Shem. When they gathered him, Yosef put his crown on the bed of Yaakov, on the coffin of Yaakov, and when all the kings saw, the kings who saw the crown on the coffin of Yaakov, they all put their crowns on Yaakov's coffin, and Yaakov's coffin was carried with crowns on it to Eretz Yisrael, where he was buried with a lot of honor. And that is the story of Parshat Vayechi.